Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer. Now, their show airs nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. Guy L. maintain a focus on sharing books, publishing, marketing, and writing solutions. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more.
Welcome to Author's Edge Show, where we engage in lively conversations with both emerging and seasoned writers, as well as publishers, songwriters, illustrators, and artists to explore the art of storytelling. We are coming to you live weekly on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 92.9 and KXOK FM 102.9. You can hear the Author's Edge show streaming at kxok.com, kwrh929.com, or any of our free apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The Author's Edge show can also be heard Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. nationwide on the My Genre Radio Network. You can also listen to any of our current or past shows on SoundCloud and YouTube, or by visiting our website at authorsedge.org. That's Author's Edge, all one word, .org. So it's wonderful to be here again. Yippee!
Yes,
It's raining.
I know.
And today I want to welcome back my co-host and award-winning mystery writer, Greg Stout. Yay! And we're thrilled to be chatting with Lena Johnson. Yay! Also known as the Absolute Good Resilience Coach. Welcome, Lena. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And before we dive in, let me share a little bit about Lena's background. Lena is currently Vice President of the St. Louis Publishers Association. Joining the SLPA in 2006, she has volunteered as a board member for 8 years. Her involvement includes presenting at a number of monthly meetings, arranging for speakers, and organizing annual conferences. She is committed to supporting writers who aspire to become published authors and be successful in their endeavors. Lena Johnson, also known as the Absolute Good Resilience Coach, is a publisher, writing coach, ghostwriter, and facilitator. Lena has helped over 100 writers and published 75 books. She exudes enthusiasm, decisiveness, organization, and resourcefulness, which has led to conducting corporate leadership and professional development trainings for over 100,000 people in the U.S., UK, and Canada. Lena's leadership helps individuals and organizations to excel in their goals. Yay!
Yay!
I'm gobsmacked.
Sounds like a great busy person. Welcome to our show, Lena.
Thank you.
Now, this is the second time you're on our show.
Yes.
And the last time you were on our show was in January of 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Time flies when you're having fun. And a lot has happened since then. You started out your career as a resilience coach. What exactly is that?
I don't know if I started my career as that, but I ended up having to be resilient in life. And then I started coaching others in order to do the same.
Well, what did you start out?
I started doing marketing, promotion, and events. I was out in Los Angeles living life, and I worked for a radio station, and I was promotion director. So going back to high school, I was pep club president. So I've always been for organizing and creating opportunities, right?
Yeah, that follows logically. Yeah, sure.
So fast forward back to Los Angeles. I started working with Anheuser-Busch, even though I was out there, and the Bud girls used to work for me. And then Cavassier Cognac said we need an ambassador on the West Coast. Somehow I started doing promotions for Cavassier, and I found myself at the Playboy Mansion doing an event. And I said, and I was
sounds like fun.
It was.
Did you meet? What's his name?
No.
No.
It was a corporate event, so no, I didn't meet Hugh. No, but it was so beautiful. I saw the grotto and all these other places, and I was on the tennis courts stuffing gift bags. And I said, this is so amazing. I never would have thought a St. Louis girl would be at the entertainment capital of the world. And now that I've created events, I want to create events in people's lives. So I wanted to do some things that were more meaningful. And so I started working with a company called Monster.com. You know, back in the day, Monster was a really big job board.
Job search, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And so they came up with a program, and it was called Making High School Count. And so they needed people to do 45-minute speeches to high school students. And I said, if I can talk to ninth graders and hold their attention for 45 minutes, I can do anything.
Oh my goodness gracious, you're not kidding.
So I had anywhere from 50 students up to 200 students, and I would talk to them about making high school count. And I really loved it. So here's one of the main things it said. It said, if we start off and we're both freshmen in high school and you get a 4.0 the first semester and I get a 2.0, then the second semester, we both get a 3.0. My GPA is still very low and yours is doing really well. And so it just talks about how we start is how we get to finish. And I loved that concept. And so I just continue to go with that. And I think there are small things that happen in people's lives and we don't necessarily know how they may affect us. And if we can have perspective and say, you know, this happened, or I can make this choice and we can be intentional, then we can be more successful in life. And a lot of times get over our hurt and our pain and our bad decisions. So that's kind of what happened and got me on the course. And then I continued to do marketing, promotion, and events, but I started doing training. And then I started traveling around the world teaching people to do training. So I worked with Franklin Covey, teaching the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I said, my goodness, if everybody knew these 7 habits, everybody would be better. But unfortunately, people in corporate America knew about the habits, but we as regular citizens didn't necessarily know about those habits. And then I started working with other organizations, and I realized that people were in a lot of pain, that a lot of times people didn't care. Some of the women would be sent to a class to conflict management skills for women. So the bosses would say, just go get fixed. And then they would expect that everything would be different when they came back. Go get fixed, right? And so I just remember being in London and I had 200 women and I was talking to them about conflict management. And one of the ladies raised her hand. She said, it's not like it is in America. We just don't have the same rights and they don't care about us. And I was like, okay. And I was shocked and I was also empathetic. And we spent a lot of time kind of going through things. And the bottom line was, if you want to keep your job, you're going to have to figure out a way to stay there and deal with it, even though it's not right, but you got to figure it out.
Right.
And after that experience, I was in Europe for 14 days and, you know, taught 10 times in 14 days. 10 different classes, right? 10 different groups of people. And I came back and I said, I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to, maybe if I write, then I can reach more people than just the people that I'm sent to, because they didn't know who was going to be sent. They just had a facilitator and I happened to be that person. So I got the bright idea to start writing my ideas and some of the strategies and things like that. So that's how I actually became an author. And then people started calling me and saying, can you help me write my book? Then can you help me publish my book? Then I have a book to write, but I don't know how to, I don't know how to write, but can you help me? So that's how everything kind of evolved. But in the meantime, I was working with organizations to help them to become resilient, to deal with conflict, to deal with challenges, to deal with change and things like that. So it's just kind of evolved. There was not a straight path. And here we are.
Wow.
Define resilience.
Resilience is the ability to rise up again after a major change or something bad happens in life.
Okay. And do you think most people are not very good at that?
Yes, I do not think most people are very good at that.
Okay, I got to straighten out the negatives here.
Okay.
So most people are not good at it. Is that where we are?
I think most people can be good at being resilient, but they're not intentional about being resilient because I don't think we've been taught to be resilient. My grandmother would say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get going. But I don't think a lot of people are reflective and they're not able to say, yes, this hurt. Because a lot of times we don't acknowledge this hurt or it didn't feel good or I don't feel the same. But then to be able to say, what are some of the lessons I got from this? And what do I actually want now that I've gotten through this.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, I taught eighth graders for 12 years, so I certainly am sympathetic to your plight dealing with ninth graders. I don't think they're a whole lot better.
Nor are 10th graders, and I taught them.
No, none of them. How do you mentioned, I think, or it was mentioned in the intro that you empower writers. How do you do that exactly?
So basically, people come to me and they say, I want to write a book. So it might be somebody who said, for 30 years, I've had this book inside of me and I need to get it out. And some of those people may have notes, but they'll also say, well, this is a personal story and I want to make it fiction because I don't want anybody to know it's my life.
Sure.
And then we have to have that conversation that if you're going to tell it, then tell it. And what is your purpose for telling it? So that's part of the issue, is to focus and to be able to say, why do you want to share this story? Why does it matter to other people? And maybe through sharing your pain and your experiences, you're actually going to give somebody a life lesson. But if you're going to hide it and try to make it fiction, then what is the message you're sending?
Do you help them to temper their expectations? In other words, do people come to you and say, geez, I think I've got the next great American novel in me and I need to drag that out of me?
Absolutely. Because they'll say, and I'll say, who's the book for? Everybody.
Uh-huh.
And it's not. That's the first thing. No, your book is not for everybody. So yes, tempering the expectations. People say, I want to be on the New York Times bestseller. Well, that takes a lot of money. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of investment. And I don't know how to get there. I wish I could say out of the 100 books I've worked on that somebody's a New York Times bestseller, but that's not really how it works. There's a marketing machine and things like that. But somebody will say, well, I want to talk about breast cancer, for example. And I'll say, well, there's probably been 2 or 3 or 400,000 books written on breast cancer. So why would somebody read your particular story?
Right.
What is your intention? And what are you going to bring to the table that somebody hasn't heard before? Or maybe your particular audience hasn't heard before? And then that's how we begin to temper the expectations. And so by asking those key questions, we can start to hone in. So this person may say, well, you know what? I typically work for nonprofits and really I want to start speaking more and I just want to talk about this subject. Okay, well, that's a different intention than being on the New York Times bestseller.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gail didn't mention, I've been published 28 times. And
yes, you are an award-winning
well,
author.
Yeah. But among other things, I do a presentation to authors groups like the one that you're heading up. Mm-hmm. And I have a presentation that's called A Path to Publication. One of the things that I talk about is, everybody says that he or she has a book in him. And that's true. They do, because we've all had these experiences and we've all, we fall in love, we've fallen out of love, we've had kids born, we've had people die, lost jobs. The question is, what perspective do you bring to that hasn't been done 100,000 times already? Mm-hmm. And how do you drag that out of somebody?
Well, I wrote a book and I didn't bring it today, but I wrote a book called Broken Conditions, and it was about my life, and it was intended to be a 3-part series.
And did you finish it?
I did not finish the second or third. I did do the first one
because I've read them all except the one you haven't done.
Yes, thank you.
So your intention was to finish it.
That's another story. So let me just be okay, because I want to answer your question. So I had planned to put them all in one book. Okay. And my assistant said, don't do it because it's too much. You can't start off totally broken, making these horrible choices. And then at the end, you're giving people coaching advice. So you need to break it up. And that was fine. But I didn't end up finishing because I'm about 95% done, but I'm no longer in the headspace of where I was when I wrote those other books.
I know that problem.
Okay. All right. So back to the question, which was setting the expectations, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So I wrote Broken Conditions because I find that people call me as a coach and they say, I want to tell this story, but I don't know how to do it. So we start with, why do you want to do it? What is the benefit? Who are you trying to speak to? And what do you want people to do as a result? Do you want them to be entertained? Do you want them to be informed? Do you want them to take action? And once they start to formulate those things, then I begin to ask, well, what makes your story unique? Or what makes your story powerful? Or based on your answers, then we need to craft something that is going to accomplish those goals. And what I found is oftentimes people just want to be popular and they think writing a book is something that will make them popular.
It doesn't.
It does not. Absolutely. It does not. It is an investment. It costs money. and
time and energy and blood and sweat and tears.
Right. And it also can be very disappointing because you spend all this time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears, and people don't buy your book. So I think a lot of times it goes with, how are you going to market the book? And more than marketing, how are you going to reach the people who need what you have to say? And I think that's the difference. When people have all types of money and they're already stars and they say, I put out a book,
Right.
people will flock to it.
Sure.
But what about the common person? And there are some people who have just been through things, like you said, death, sickness, all these types of things. And they feel like, well, maybe I do want to reach eighth graders. Well, how do I reach eighth graders? They're not going to buy the book. Well, maybe I can reach their parents. Well, why would their busy parents buy this book? Well, there may be something about it, this struggle that they're dealing with, that they may be able to relate to. How do you reach those people? Well, maybe you talk to your school district and see if you can get somebody to say, hey, can I do a class on it? And then all of a sudden, maybe you're doing a class with this school district or this particular school and this particular school and this particular school. And then all of a sudden, you have a whole district or several districts saying, you know what, this has made a difference in the lives of these parents, or this has made a difference in the lives of these eighth graders. So let's continue this. So it really has to be a movement of some type. And I recommend that writers be passionate about what they're talking about. You just can't say, I'm going to throw something on paper, because I don't know what the statistic is now, but every single week, I think there's like 50,000 books that are published every single week in the United States alone.
That sounds about right.
It could be.
Yeah. So
what makes you so special?
Yeah. Why would somebody read what you have to say?
Right.
And I think that's the biggest problem. So I tell people, listen, if you want to write a book, you need to know it's going to be an investment. And I don't care what, and no, your 12-year-old is not going to do the cover. No, they're not going to do the cover art. No, your grandchild who's 17, who's in class for art, they're not going to do the cover, because it has to appeal to people. So there are so many elements that have to appeal. But first, I used to work with people, and I've done books where somebody had 10 bullet points and we created books. That's all they had, 10 bullet points. And working with them as a coach and ghostwriter coach, we've come up with what their platform is.
Are these primarily, and I know we have a script and I'm probably jumping all over the place.
Uh-huh.
Are these primarily nonfiction titles that you're working with people?
Yes. So fiction is, stories that are not necessarily true. They're made up. They're novels and things like that.
Oh, I do know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, for our audience, I know, you 28 books, but nonfiction, yes, usually about people's lives, things that have happened and they've learned lessons, or they want people to have some type of perspective or lesson.
They primarily publish them themselves?
So I have my company. So I started off, Mission Possible Press is my company, but Absolute Good Enterprises kind of encompasses all that I do: coaching, training, also publishing. And so now I really do a lot of book shepherding. So on one hand, I'll start off as the coach and I'll help them write that book. Once we have the book published, or a book finished, then I put on my publishing hat and we publish the book. And I support them in setting up their own accounts and those type things, so they have control of their accounts and they are officially self-published. So I do every single thing for them that I would do under my company. And then now they have their book and they have access to distribution and profits and things like that.
And they hold the copyrights.
Yes. And I do that. So I'm kind of an alternative publishing entity. At first, I used to publish people through Mission Possible Press, but what happened was, they would order 100 books and then they might sell 5 or 25. And then after the little fees are taken out, then I owe them $24 for the year. I never sell my authors' books. So now I have to try to find them to send them $22. I don't like doing that.
Right.
So I would rather people be empowered and have their own product available to them.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, you are listening to Author's Edge show, and we are chatting with Lena Johnson about her book and all the things that she does. But her book is Stop Acting Up, 14 Ways to Get Yourself Together, coming to you live weekly on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 92.9 and KXOK FM 102.9. You can hear Author's Edge show streaming at KXOK.com, KWRH929.com, or on any of our free apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The Author's Edge show can also be heard Monday to Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. nationwide on the My Genre Radio network. You can also listen to our current or past shows on SoundCloud and YouTube, or by visiting our website at authorsedge.org. That's Author's Edge, all one word, .org. So you also do corporate training.
Yes.
All right. Which, how did you develop your corporate training style? And how did you go get into that?
Well, it
Well, I
starts.
think you, in a way, you almost answered that.
Yeah, I did. It started off really in high school for me when I was substitute teaching for students, and they would leave Simpsons videos for kids to do. And I'm like, we're not going to do that. We're going to go to college. And that's literally how it started. So I used what I had available, my available resources, which was the chalkboard and chalk. And I would say, what are all the things, because I'm a junior in high school by this time. I'm college by this time. So I would take the chalk and say, what are you going to go? What are you going to take? And they would say, oh, I'm going to take a TV. Okay, great. And then, you're missing a lot of things. What about your shower shoes or your bucket? Now, this is old, this is like almost 40 years ago now, but this happened. And they would say, well, why do I need shower shoes or a bucket? And it's like, well, you're going to have a common bathroom and you're going to have to share it with people. And you need a bucket to put all your stuff in. And they're like, what? And so now we're learning about college life from a practical perspective. And I just literally started doing workshops like that. I didn't even really realize I was doing workshops, but that's what I was doing. So, over the holidays, I was subbing for, a couple of weeks or whatever before Christmas got out. And so the kids would just come and say, Miss Johnson, I heard what you're going to do today. I'm in your third period. I'm in your fourth period. And that's how I started, literally with a chalkboard. And then when I was working with Cavassier and I was training my staff, so, after Budweiser and I was working with Cavassier, I had hostesses who were talking to people about the drinks. So I had to train them about professionalism, how to approach people, what to say, what not to say, to make sure that the drinks were how they were supposed to be. So it just all happened very organically. And then, as I mentioned, when I started working with Monster.com, I had a script. And then it got more formal. And then I became certified in like 25 different classes. And it just kind of went from there.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. Okay, let's get to your book.
Okay.
Stop Acting Up, 14 Ways to Get Yourself Together. That would be debuting in January, if I'm not correct.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And the quote that you gave us, it's normal and natural to feel uncomfortable if you haven't done something before. Ask for support and be amazed at what you can accomplish. And the second thing that you gave us was practice makes skilled, not perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So what does this quote mean? Give us some background.
Yes.
On that.
Practice makes skill, not perfect. Let's start with that one. We've always been told, I was told practice makes perfect. Well, there's never perfect because perfect exists only in our minds. So I may say, okay, I had a long life and I've had so many problems and my problems go up to here, which is almost to the top of my head for those who are listening to us. And then, and then if I make it within 2 inches of that, then you might say, oh, that's good, but it's not perfect. Well, if I set my expectations right here, almost at the top of my head, I don't necessarily reach what is available, because if I open my vision and I start to practice and I become skilled at things, I might actually go above my head. And so I think perspective is where practice comes in. So when we think about our muscles, we know the more and more we use our muscles, the more and more strong they become. And I believe when we are intentional about our lives and we practice things and we say, you know what, I've been acting up. So let's qualify that. Stop acting up. I tell people that all the time. I tell myself that about 15 times a day, right? So when I say that, somebody may tell you something and you have the same reaction. So I will talk about a person named Sam. So let's say you have a person named Sam, you inherited them. Maybe they're a parent or a child. Maybe it's your partner or your spouse, or maybe it's someone you work with. And every time you see Sam, you don't like Sam per se, and you might frown at Sam whenever you see Sam. When you see Sam call on the phone, you're like, oh my gosh, here's Sam. So I
have friends like that.
Yeah. And also, aren't you saying, oh my gosh,
I have relatives like that.
there you go. Yeah. Here we go again. Here we go again with Sam.
Straight to voicemail.
Yeah, there you go. And so then, but guess what? Sam's probably not going away, right? So now how are you going to choose to deal with Sam? So if you want some different results with Sam, just because you say, oh, I'm going to stop acting up, doesn't mean that Sam is going to stop acting up. So now you get to say, if I want a different result, I'm going to have to start doing things differently. And so what I would say is, what do I actually want from my situation with Sam? Is there something I need to confront? Is there something I need to discuss? If there's something I need to get off my chest, or maybe I need to create a boundary and separate myself from Sam, because oftentimes we're on autopilot. We did what we learned to do, or what our parents did, or somebody else did, and we never have new results because we don't do, think, or experience anything different.
When people come to you with unrealistic expectations, how do you get them to temper that? Because that has to be tough.
No, it's not tough for me, because I don't want you to waste your money. I don't want you to waste your time. I am a very direct person and I want people to be successful. And I've had several people come to me and I would say, you know what is your plan? And I listen to all their answers. Then I say, you know what, I know you really want this to make a difference for your family. And this is probably better as a diary. And you can do a diary and you can get it printed and you can do whatever you need to do. And then now you can distribute it. But this may or may not be something that somebody would purchase. I also ask them, what are your goals? So what is your goal for your book? And what is your goal for the reader? And if they don't have a clear expectation, I let them know either they need to come up with one or maybe they need to wait. And I think once people start saying, oh, it might cost me thousands of dollars or maybe even tens of thousands of dollars for some people, depending on what they're trying to do, their expectations are set a little bit.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in our various writers guilds that are writing what I would call memoirs, and I think there's some idea that they're going to sell that, but really it's a non-commercial kind of a thing.
Absolutely. So that's why I think I'm a very good coach. I do a 2-hour coaching session, and by the end of the coaching session, they're like, wow, either I really want to do this or I had no idea what I'm in for, and even though I'd like to do it, I can't do it by myself, so you can help me, or even though I'd like to do it, maybe this isn't the time or the place for me to do it.
Okay.
All right. We are going to go to commercial, but before we do that, I do want to let the audience know that we do have Greg Stout here, who is, I'm thrilled to tell you, is I want to do a little bit of a spotlight on our incredible co-host.
Oh, thank you.
A true master of the mystery genre and an award-winning writer. He's not just any author. He's a Shamus Award winner, a prestigious honor given by the Private Eye Writers of America.
I made
to
millions.
Celebrate. Yes, you made, yes. And I'm expecting a little, coming my way to celebrate excellence in private eye fiction. He's graced our show a few times, and fans of detective fiction might know him best for his gripping Jackson Gamble series. His latest novel, Long Time Gone, is another thrilling addition that keeps readers on the edge of their seats. Are you an author, a publisher, editor, illustrator, songwriter, or artist looking to expand your reach? Advertise on Author's Edge to connect with passionate readers and industry insiders. With engaging interviews, reviews, and discussions, your book will shine. Why choose us? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost sales and visibility, target impactful ads, and trusted host endorsements, which is what I just gave you a minute ago with our friend here, Greg Stout. Elevate your presence with Author's Edge. Contact us today, 573-714-1352, where authors and readers meet.
Wow.
Right.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page.
Okay, I'd like to welcome back Lena Johnson, and we're talking about her book, Stop Acting Up, 14 Ways to Get Yourself Together, on Author's Ed's show. You had something, sometimes writers will say to you, I struggle with procrastination. Why does this happen? How do you respond to all of that?
It goes to my other quote, which I said, it's normal and natural to be uncomfortable if you've never done something. And so if you've never written a book, it's just normal and natural not to know what to do. So it's just like what I said earlier about using your muscles, practicing. So I recommend getting someone to coach you and show you what to do. So just like if you want to be a star on the football field, you get a coach. If you want to be a star when it comes to diet or exercise, you get a coach. And I think the same way when it comes to book writing and becoming a published author. A writer is different than a published author, and certainly a successful author. And success is relative.
Absolutely. It is. How can I begin to change the results in my life?
You can start to write down, I would say, 7 things that you don't like
About yourself.
It doesn't have to be about yourself, but maybe situations you're in. Something might be about yourself. You might say, I don't like the way I feel after I eat pizza. I mean, it might be something like that, but it also may be, I don't like my current situation with my partner or in my relationship, or I don't like my current relationship at work. I don't like my job. So just 7 things you just don't like. And then after you write those 7 things, write down 7 more things you don't like. Okay. And by the time you do that and you look at those 14 things that you don't like, what is the common denominator in all of those?
You're a crabby person.
Probably.
You don't like anything.
So there was a statistic, going back to my training background, there was a statistic, and it said that the average human being has about 40,000 thoughts per day. Now, whether or not we agree with that, but let's just go with it. If the average human being has about 40,000 thoughts per day, what percentage of those thoughts do you think are negative for the average human being?
3/4 of them.
Yeah, you're good. That's good. 70 to 80% of the average human being's thoughts are negative. Okay?
I would think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how many of those thoughts do you think are repetitive, the 40,000?
At least half of them.
At least half.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so even if you feel that you are a particularly positive person, at least half of your thoughts are negative every day. And those just continue to cycle round and round and round. So if you can begin to say, you know what, I'm seeing this way and I don't like those results, then you can say, what do I want to happen as opposed to what is actually happening? And then when you say that, so I'm avoiding that call with Sam. I'm avoiding every time I see Sam's number and I send it to voicemail, I get upset. I'm not dealing with it. And it happens over and over and over again. So now I got to do something different. I have to stop acting up because Sam may be perfectly fine. Sam is probably fine with Sam. And I'm the one that hasn't forgiven Sam, or I'm the one that has taken offense to Sam. So now I got to do something different. And so that's where it starts. It usually starts. So after you've written those 14 things, then say, what are the results I want? So we can say, I hate it when you leave dirty dishes in the sink. Okay, we're complaining. But what do you actually want? Oh, I'd love it if you wouldn't leave dirty dishes in the sink. Or before you go to sleep, would you please wash the dishes? Turn the dish. Yes.
Turn it to a positive.
And not just a positive, but the result you actually want. Because really, I don't like doing dishes. I never really want to do dishes. Am I willing to do dishes? Yes, because I don't want a dirty kitchen. I want to be able to cook and it's clean and those type things. But do I want to do it? No. So I think it starts with willingness. Am I willing to do something different to get a new result?
I do my own laundry. Does that count for anything?
Sure. I have a laundry story.
How can writing in a journal or a book help me accomplish these life goals?
Well, when I was a little girl, I remember my aunt gave me my first diary. And so I think I was like 8. And I don't know if you remember those diaries, but they were
With
the little one.
with
They had
the
the
lock?
A little lock on it? Yeah. That you could pick with a paper clip.
Exactly.
Yes.
Were you a brother?
I was, but I didn't have a sister.
Okay. So, I would get these and I would get so upset with my mom because something would happen and I would go to my diary and just say everything I couldn't say to her. Right. And then one day I was like, you're probably reading this and I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, because I was able to get things out. And I think now it's a travesty because since we have social media, I think that's why people act up or act out on social media, because instead of going to their private journal and just getting it out, sometimes it's just getting it out.
Yep.
And then once you get it out, you can get perspective, or you can let go of that anger or let go of that hurt and then make some decisions, because we have a reaction as opposed to a response.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use your typewriter, you use your diary, you use your phone, you use even if you send yourself a voice to text message and you get it out, then that lets you free up and you can breathe a little bit and say, now, what do I actually want?
That's why I talk to myself.
But
I talk to myself out loud.
But coming back to social media for just a second, and I know this is not why you're here, it does allow people to find other people who share their point of view. And at some point, it sort of becomes a closed loop. And you begin to think that everybody sort of agrees with you and everybody's as angry as you are. And I wonder whether that's really a positive thing. And if there isn't a way to take some of that same energy and channel in a positive direction.
I don't think it's positive. I think we've lost a lot of perspective because people can go down their own rabbit holes and then they don't learn anything else.
Yes.
When I was growing up, I'm not sure of what year it was, but I think MTV, maybe they're celebrating their 45th year. Maybe.
1982 is when they came on. I do remember.
Okay. So I was 12.
I was already old.
So back when MTV first came out, we saw all types of music. Now, They didn't allow everybody to come on yet, but it was all types of music. So I remember, Duran Duran and Boy George and all those type things. Then eventually they let Michael Jackson on. Then eventually they let Prince on. And then we had other things. But we were exposed to so much different music because we were able to not only listen to the music, but see the videos. Now, people now can't even imagine not being able to see a video. But we remember when you're like, oh, this is what they look like. And then you would see how people, I remember the Eurythmics, some of them want to use you, some of them want to abuse you, some of them want to be abused.
Yeah.
And,
I love
that song. I mean, it was like, wow. And then I'm looking at the way they dressed in Europe. And, the media has always had effects. And so even one more thing, and then I'll answer your question. I remember the first time I went to Hawaii, I have air quotes. It was when I was watching the Brady Bunch and they went to Hawaii. It was us. The first time I went to Las Vegas, the Brady Bunch went to Las Vegas and they got lost in a gold mine, an old abandoned town. And then I remember watching The Love Boat and I would see Puerto Vallarta and all these things. This is how I traveled. And it stirred up a desire
to go someplace, to do something.
And to explore and to have different experiences. Okay.
Yes, it did.
So now that we have social media and we can say, oh, I just love the color red and I'm not going to deal with anything unless it's about the color red, then we're so limited. We don't learn about green, blue, purple, or anything else. Right. And so I think it's unfortunate because we have all these niches. And back in the day, we didn't have these mini computers. Our telephones are literally computers, right? Yes. So when I bought my first Prince album in 1982, it was a double album, Purple Rain. And I only got $2 a week allowance. I had to work for 6 weeks in order to be able, 8 weeks in order to be able to afford this album, right? Because it had tax. And then I played it on my little record player. And my mother heard this song and she said, Jolena, what are you listening to? And it was really not appropriate. It was called Darling Nikki. It was really not appropriate for my age, 13 years old or whatever. But she could hear it because it was on the record player and I was in my room. But now that we have the ability to listen to whatever, we get programmed and we get so limited. And I think that's part of what's wrong with society today. We don't have enough variety. We don't have enough perspective. And I think it definitely limits us.
I agree with you. I grew up here in St. Louis, and when I was a kid, we had 5 TV stations. And so on Sunday night, for example, you either watch Bonanza or you watch Disney, but it contributed to kind of a common culture.
Yes, I agree.
And we don't have that common culture.
Probably irretrievably fragmented.
I agree with
because you can find a sounding board now for pretty much anything, any type of music, any type of television show, any type of, political ideas, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And, I guess that's okay in a way because it probably makes people feel validated. But, in another way, I feel like we've lost something.
I definitely do. If I can just speak one more on that.
Yeah.
Go.
So when the coronavirus first came out, I remember everybody was kumbaya because we were all so scared when it first came out, and people started
Right.
doing TikTok videos, and they were dancing and they were cooking, and it was like for
Everybody together.
everybody for like a week and a half or 2 weeks,
Yeah.
maybe.
Or even like there was like people on their balconies, and they would all go out on their balconies, and they would all sing, or they would
Yes.
all do something together.
Yes.
You know, and everybody would go out at a specific time, and they would all talk to each other.
Yes.
You know, yelling across
Yes.
alleyways or whatever.
Yes.
Yes, I remember that.
So as the world, I think we were doing these small things, right?
Right.
And then as they started saying, "Oh, this group of people is more susceptible," or this group of people, or this, or
Right.
these,
And then we
all of a
started
sudden-
getting
right.
Then we
That-
started getting stupid.
Yeah.
Or it was just inconvenient for me because I can't do something that I wanted to do.
Yes.
I can't go to
Right.
the movies, or I can't go to the
Right.
baseball game.
Then we
Yes.
started getting
Remember-
stupid.
They were
Yes.
playing in empty stadiums.
Yes, absolutely. So back to your point about now you had neighborhoods though that people would at least maybe gather and get to know their neighbors again, because I think that's what's missing too.
Mhm.
People come home and they just park in their garage and then they go inside and
Right.
then that's it.
Right. How do you know a story's worth telling?
I listen. I kind of listen to what the person is saying and why they're saying it. And then I give them my opinion and then they can make a decision. I mean, when I say I work with over 100 authors, I've helped to publish over 75 books. But those 25 people or so that didn't publish, I work with them, and then something may have happened, and something may have shifted in their life, whether it be an event, whether it be a financial situation, maybe it's their passion, or maybe somebody passed in their family, or maybe they lost their courage to speak up. Because one of the biggest things people will say, I want to write this book, but I need to do it after my parent passes, or after this, or after that, because I don't want to tell a secret. And I try to encourage people, there's ways that you can do things, that you don't have to tell everything the way it is, but you can, give some common
Allude.
lessons and some things and allude to things. So I think, I think I have enough experience of listening to people. And I mean, when I think about my 2-hour consultations, I probably had, most people do want to come back and write, but out of 10 people, maybe one person says, okay, I don't think this is for me. And it's just, I really don't have an interest in whether or not they do it or not. My interest is, if you're going to do it, I want you to have realistic expectations and I want you to be successful. But we need to define what success is going to look like for you.
And do they tend to be personal stories?
Absolutely. The people who come to me,
Yes.
They tend to be personal stories. And I don't know if I ever said that when I talked about my book, Broken Conditions. The reason I wrote that book is because I've had a lot of trauma in my life, and I wanted to give people permission to talk about their shame. That's the reason I wrote the book, not because I just wanted everybody to know my personal business. And then I've had authors come to me and say, I read this, and now I do feel like I can tell my story. Or when I read this particular passage, I said, you know what? It reminded me of a time that such and such and such happened in my life. And now we're on to something. So sometimes you write so that you can inspire and empower people to do the same. And that's what I've done.
Because, I would say to people that nonfiction is much easier to get published, because if you're an expert on African violets or fixing old Volkswagens or whatever it is, there is a constituency for that.
Mhm.
And there are publishers who can reach that audience.
Yes.
I think when you get into kind of memoir type things or personal journey type things, that's got to be a lot harder.
I think it depends on what it is.
I suppose.
I mean, I think that if it's, and it also depends on what's the popular thing to be writing about.
Yes.
Okay, like if there's a specific issue that's very popular at the moment, everybody writes their book about. If you're at the beginning of that particular popular issue,
Yes.
everybody wants to read it, then you're in the go.
Yes.
If you're at the tail end of that, then you're not.
Right.
Okay, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
Also, if you're writing fiction, and I call them smut books, don't get offended anybody. But if you're writing those type of books and you're talking about sex sells, and even if you're a poor writer, but you have a salacious story,
They're going to buy it.
they're going to buy it. That's just not what I do, though. I'm not capable. I
I'm
don't
not
read
good
it.
at
I
that
don't write
either.
it.
I don't read it. I don't write it.
Off the mic, I'll tell you a story about that.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I wrote Stop Acting Up because I want things to be better for people in their minds and in their realities. There's a lot of reasons why we have problems that we have. Some things are genetic. Some things are inherited through, some people say, well, it's karma. It's something that you got from your parents. It's these things. And actually, I'm just going to introduce this. This book, Living with a Ghost, Who We Are and Why We Do What We Do. This is one of my clients, Dr. Micah Rayleigh, and his book just came today. He hasn't even seen it yet.
All right. So we're gonna
well, wave it around.
Yes, he hasn't even seen it. And what it says is, this is not a book about ghosts. It is a book about being haunted by destructive thoughts and how to stop them. And I think I know there are things that have happened in our lives. And based on what has happened, we've made choices. And we've said, yeah, I'm not good enough, our self-esteem. Or, yeah, my parents didn't care about me enough, so I don't need to do this. Or, yeah, for me, my mom smoked cigarettes. She smoked 2 packs a day. And guess what I decided? I'm not going to smoke.
Yeah.
And so these things happen. And a lot of times they happen to us, and we don't necessarily know we have power to take them back. And so what Dr. Rayleigh, he was a medical doctor for over 40 years. He was at SLU. He was an administrator. Maybe he'll be able to come on the show and talk more about his book. But what I loved is,
wonderful.
Yes, I would love that. And so what happened was, he was practicing medicine, and then he started going blind. And he said, oh my goodness, well, I have a story to tell, because I want people to know that there can be healing, but it takes Western medicine and spirituality in order to come up and fix some of the things that have happened in your life. And that's what he wrote about. And there's one thing he talks about, which, let me find it. And I'll go back to kind of what I try to do. Adverse childhood experiences is called ACEs. And it was a study that happened quite a few years ago. And it says that if you had a parent who smoked, or you were a product of divorce, or you were homeless, or you had abuse, there are these things that they can predict and say, oh, you'll be overweight, or you might have an addiction, or you might come up with diabetes, or you might have these things based on adverse childhood experiences. And it's so fascinating, and it's not that complicated. And you can just look and you can say, okay, check. These things happen to me.
I've seen that study.
Yes. And most people don't know anything about it. But if you know that and you say, oh, no wonder I feel this way. Oh, no wonder I get upset, or no wonder I clam up, or no wonder I act out when these things happen, that can give you relief and say, you know what, this is a normal reaction, because these things happen. You were traumatized, or you were in a toxic environment. And I just want people to have answers, because if they have answers, then they can come up with solutions. But if they're in the abyss of, I don't know why this is happening to me, I'm a victim, I can't take it, I can't do it, then they have no choice or no opportunity. And so I just wanted to mention Dr. Rayleigh's book, because he is an example of the type of people that I work with. Someone who has done something in their life, and they want to extend their legacy, or they want to make a difference. And he said, hey, I'm interested in this, and I want to write a book about my practice and about what people can do to have a better life. And then I want to write a play. And I'm like, well, I don't really write plays, but I can help you with this, and we'll see what happens. So,
well, there is almost not a day that goes by that I don't get an email from somebody who wants to ghostwrite, design a cover, copy edit, you name it, storyboard, and that's what publishers do. But how do you find a good one?
A good what?
A good anything. I need help writing this book, because I can't push a noun and a verb together without sparks flying. How do I get help with that?
Well, you can send them to me. I can recommend myself as a book writer,
This
a book
commercial
coach.
message has been brought to you by.
Go to absolutegoodenterprises.com. Okay. So that's a great question. And I mean it. That's why I started coaching, not because I just wanted to coach, but because I felt like people needed help with what they were doing, and they needed somebody they could rely on and trust in. So that's number one. I don't work with everybody, because I may not be for them and they may not be for me. That's number two. And again, if they're depending on the subject matter, I may not be the person. So I do a certain amount of editing, but I'm not an editor. So if you've written a book and now you want me to look at it and, pick some holes in it and things like that, I can do those things. If we work together and we actually write the book, then I always get a proofreader, because once I'm working in the book with you, I can't see anything. So with my little organization, I have a particular person who I basically work with, who does my covers. I have a couple of people who do my editing. I have those type things. So what I would say is, if you're on your own, you need to look at their work and just see what they've done before, because it's very difficult. Now, sometimes you can get a book cover for as low as $200. And then I know somebody I heard this person is charging like $2,500 for a basic book cover. And I'm like shocked and appalled, because most of the people I work with, I would never recommend paying $2,500 for a book cover. I think that is too
Absurd.
much. But some
Yeah.
people have that type of resource, right? So I would say just look at what people have done when you're looking for someone. There's a lot of vanity presses. I actually got a call 2 days ago, and they said, we have $4 million that we're able to offer to you, possibly as an author, if you would come and sign up. And I was like, and I'm listening to this message, I'm like, what kind of crap is this? And I just erased the message. It was so absurd, and usually if it sounds too good to be true,
it is too good to be true.
Yes, it
So,
is.
so what I would say, if someone is local in St. Louis, we have the St. Louis Publishers Association, which is the organization I'm currently vice president of and running for president right now. And
Did you want to make a campaign speech?
well, I've been with the organization since 2006.
There we are.
But I would say organizations like that, the Independent Publishers Association and things like that. So here specifically in St. Louis, we have meetings every second Wednesday of the month. And people can come there and learn about publishing, self-publishing. They can learn about how to become an author. Okay, because again, there's a difference between being a writer and an author. And there we have other people, editors, book cover designers, and things like that, interior designers who do those type things. So I would say, I like working with people personally. During COVID,
I do too.
Yeah, during COVID, I think I did like 12 books during COVID, and we did it all through Zoom, of course, which was amazing. But I like to have one-on-one so we can exchange energy, so we can see what's going on and things like that. But there are some people who are comfortable just having an internet relationship, and that's fine. But I would say also, talk to people. Most of the time, if somebody, if they say something negative about my services, it might be because they didn't pay me on time, as opposed to something else, if that makes sense, right? So, you always wonder, why do you have problems? What is the issue? So you might have a personality issue, you may have other things, but a lot of times they'll say, oh, I had an expectation and then I didn't do something, and then this happened and this is the result. That's one of the challenges. But when you go to SLPA, you can meet people in person. So we actually have a meeting, like I said, every second Wednesday. And it's an opportunity to just say, hey, let me see who you are. Let me see what you're up to. Can you tell me about yourself? Can you recommend some clients that might be able to speak on your behalf? I mean, it's just like anything else that you want to invest in. You want to get to know who that person is and what they can offer. And that's what I would recommend. I don't think anybody should try to do it on their own.
During your recent campaign speech, you mentioned that that you're involved with a writers organization here, SLPA.
Yes.
What do you think is the value beyond just hanging around with other people who are writers in being part of a group like that?
Well, so you do have the St. Louis Writers Guild and you have the Missouri Writers Guild. The St. Louis Publishers Association is more so for people who say, I want to write. I'm not really writing articles. I want to write books, and I want to learn how to publish my books. So a lot of those people come, and they may be at different stages of development. So it may be somebody who has a notebook that they've handwritten over the last 20 years. And then they're saying, okay, I just want to publish it. I want to give it to somebody and get it published. And then you have somebody else who says, I've been working on this novel for the last 10 years. And now that I have it done, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to market it. I don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to load it on Amazon. And so the people that are in that room are people like myself, other professionals, writing professionals, or not just writing professionals, professional writing services providers who can guide you and steer you to those things.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
I'm aware of an individual who has a 565,000 word manuscript.
That is way too long.
Well, you think?
Who's that?
Don't say it on the air.
I can't say that. I'll tell you later.
Somebody wrote me, or well, actually I met her at a meeting, and she called me and said, I want to do a 2-hour consultation. And I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your book. And she said, well, I have a 60,000 page book. And it was really about her life. And I said, 60,000 word book. I said, it's too long. And she said, what do you mean? I said, you're 38. What are you talking about?
She's 38 years old?
Yeah. So what are you going to talk about for 60,000 words?
Well, maybe she was a POW.
She was not. And so we talked about it. And then she understood, because she's a great person, a great writer. She has a great story, but she kind of had 2 or 3 books in there. So once we kind of went through and I started reading, I'm like, now, for you to have a book that someone would want to purchase, let's focus on this area of what you've written. So she kind of wrote it like a diary to her daughter, like, okay, these are the things I wish I had told you. And she was literally writing your dad, your grandma, your grandpa. And I'm like, as the reader, and then you're saying one person is grandpa, person is grandpapa, then you have Nana, and then you have grandma.
Nana,
I'm like, these are 4 different people, and I am very confused.
Yeah.
Does it matter that, can you just say grandparent? So these are the types of things when I talk about coaching, we're talking about what is the purpose of this? So if you want to prepare young ladies for life, especially young ladies who are considering dating and the ramifications of dating while single and things like that, this is a book for you. And so she has a lovely beginning and foundation for that. But that's about 20,000 words, not 60,000.
Yeah. We were talking during the break, and I want to get back to this because you indicated that you wanted to talk about it a little bit. I said to you that I had heard a statistic where if you kind of count the number of people that you know well, multiply it by 2, that's about how many books you're going to sell. And I think you had something you wanted to amplify that.
I think that may be too high of an expectation. Because oftentimes when you write a book, your family wants you to give them the book, and they may or may not read the book. And your family needs to be the ones that support your book, and they should just buy like not just 1, but maybe 5 or 10 just to support you. And so that's one of the challenges. So before social media, if you actually knew 100 people and you might be related to 20 of them, that's 100 people selling 200 books. That's a lot of books. Sometimes people don't sell 200 books. And then just because you're connected to somebody on Facebook, like I have almost 5,000 Facebook friends. And believe it or not, I know over 3,500 of those people personally because of school,
Sure.
different things. I actually know them. But I wouldn't even say 10% of them buy my books.
Yeah.
So you have to think about it. Maybe somebody's supportive of you in your writing career, but it doesn't mean they care about what you care about, or they care about what you've written about, especially enough to buy it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that.
Oh, I know. It's tough.
Yeah, it's being real. Okay. We are believe this or not, we are getting to the end of our show.
Yay!
No, we can keep going. You're doing fine.
But I do want to focus a little bit for a couple of seconds. Now, your newest book is Stop Acting Up, 14 Ways to Get Yourself Together, and that's coming out in January.
Yes.
Okay. How can people get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, absolutegoodenterprises.com, and my information is there, how to contact me by telephone or email. absolutegoodenterprises.com.
Okay.
Or they can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Lena Johnson.
Okay.
JO space capital LENA Johnson.
Okay. JO space LEN Johnson.
LENA.
LENA. I'm sorry.
Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that, and the writer, this one. And we can get Living with a Ghost, Michael T. Riley, MD.
Yes.
We can get his book on.
It's going to be available on Amazon. It officially comes out in February.
Okay.
And right now we are scheduling writing events for him.
Okay.
Yes, but it'll officially be available on the market. But in St. Louis, he'll be doing some talks and things like that.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, all righty. Well, I just want to make sure that we got all of those good things in.
Thank you very much for being with us. You've been a terrific guest.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm really honored to be here. I know we only have like a couple of seconds.
We have 3
here.
minutes.
Okay. I think we have 2.
We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, we have 2.
We have 2 minutes.
I just want to say thank you for being an outlet for people who are interested in writing. I don't think we have enough people who are interested in writing and who are connected. And I love your mission. And I just think it's wonderful that somebody can listen to this and it can make a difference in their lives. So thank you both.
Well,
glad we can do it.
Compliments all the way around.
Yeah, we'll take
That's
them.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Lena Johnson, for being on Author's Edge. Tune in again next week for more tips, resources, and your favorite conversation. Our next guest is going to be Larry Wood, and he's going to be talking to us about his book, Lady Rebels of Civil War, Missouri. Okay. Till then, see you around the inkwell.